If you're not already subscribed to this YouTube channel, go ahead and hit the subscribe button now, along with the bell icon so you can be notified whenever a new video is posted. And if you're already subscribed, check and make sure that YouTube hasn't unsubscribed you. And of course, be sure to give the video a like, as well as share it on your social media. The white supremacists hate that. And now, the Sunday address. Bill Maher, this reprobate, paging Dr. Juliana Margulies, come and get your man. As part of his constant cheerleading for and defending anything that is anti-black, this last week Bill Maher said that he didn't have a problem with the lynching anthem, Try That in a Small Town. And this is not the first time that he's defended that lynching anthem.
And what they do is they operate in bad faith. I don't know if you've seen this story, but there's a country star named Jason Aldean.
Don't know him.
Okay, he put out a record called Try That in a Small Town. And I was, again, one of those things, the polarization of this country. I read the things that the righties said about it. I read the thing that the lefties said about it. To the left, this was like he's this horrible racist because he's a country guy. And he shot the video at a courthouse steps where someone was lynched 100 years earlier. So it was about lynchings. And basically, he's a redneck guy.
Now, you see what Bill Maher did? He just blithely dismisses all of the racist stuff that this Aldean character has said in the past. As I and others have documented for you, Jason Aldean has a long track record of saying all sorts of racist garbage. But Bill Maher doesn't talk about that. He pretends as if it doesn't happen.
They just don't like that he's a country guy.
Yeah, and all the racist stuff that he says has absolutely nothing to do with it. This is a racist defending another racist. He's done it before in the past, so he's doubling down on it. He just wants to make absolutely clear that when he thinks about free speech, this is the kind of freedom he's thinking about. Bill Maher said he wasn't mad about the song at all. In fact, he went so far as to say he wished that could be the case in all the big cities. Now, this so-called song was meant to invoke white lynch mobs and the white supremacist sundown town, making sure that if there was a black person who was there after sundown, they would all gang up on him. And this is what Bill Maher's defending. This is what he said he wishes they could do in the big cities. That's because the racist hate tract was aimed at black people, not at him. Bill Maher is so thin-skinned and petty that merely having people in the audience boo one of his jokes is enough to get him giving them the middle finger and all the rest of it. See, this is the support that Juliana Margulies claimed that black people have been getting over the decades. When she talks about people supporting black folks, this is what she's talking about. This is what it is. She wanted to know where her black supporters were at. Well, we would love to join the local March for Israel, but we're too busy having to dodge the racists who her buddies like Bill Maher have been encouraging and emboldening to attack us. This woman Margulies is basically illiterate or just too lazy to read. Last week, Juliana Margulies and her pal Andy Ostroy were saying that nobody had ever done anything for Jewish people. Well, when you look at the Civil Rights Act of 1964 that black people fought for, marched for, demonstrated for, and got killed in order to have that law enacted, Title VII of the 1964 Civil Rights Act specifically outlaws discrimination on the basis of religion. Now, does Juliana Margulies think that that was because black people were being discriminated against on the basis of religion? Is that what it was meant to do? Black people's big problem was our religion. Hey, too many of these Southern Baptists. We don't like Southern Baptists around here. Now, if black people were Catholic, everything would be fine, right? Is that what she thinks? No. That has to do with how Jewish Americans were being discriminated against. Jewish participation in major companies and high government offices took off after the passage of the 1964 Civil Rights Act. So we have to make sure the historical record is clear. Juliana Margulies was pushing a fiction, as if Jewish people were simply supporting the civil rights movement because, well, they just wanted to help black people. That's not true. They were getting things out of it. There were parts of the legislation specifically meant for them. They benefited from it specifically. It was a big help to them, but it would not have happened without black people taking to the streets and having those numbers and having the moral legitimacy to bring those laws about. What we have is a malicious rewriting of history to try to make black people into bystanders in our own story, to make it seem that everyone had to do everything for us and that black people are indebted to everyone because we're just so helpless, don't you know, when in reality, we have done things that have benefited everybody around us. Juliana Margulies works in Hollywood. Perhaps she should watch the movie Gentleman's Agreement. It's a movie in which Gregory Peck plays the part of a reporter who claims to be Jewish as part of his investigative report into claims of anti-Semitism in New York City. Everyone should watch it, especially Juliana Margulies, if I may. And while Bill Maher is doing all of this racist agitprop, subscriptions to HBO are down. Not surprisingly. Gee, I wonder why. I guess it just goes to show that David Zaslav, or whoever the hell owns HBO this week, has more money than sense, that they keep plowing more and more cash into this money pit. Bill Maher is not driving subscriptions. He's not drawing eyeballs. Clowns like him are driving them away. But then again, white supremacy has tons of money stockpiled. They can easily afford to throw away billions of dollars on a whole army of racist losers like Bill Maher, as long as it amuses the corporate racist overlords that they work for and who want this kind of anti-black message out there. Now, I'm sure it won't come as a surprise to any of you that I don't watch Bill Maher's little sideshow with any sort of regularity. Why should I? There's only two things that Bill Maher ever does: smoke pot and laugh at his own stupid jokes. I don't do drugs, and I don't think he's funny, so I have no reason to watch his show. But I guess it makes sense that the guy loves marijuana so much and advocates for it. First of all, I think that it helps to dull the pain of his own empty existence. That's why he does it all the time. But also, the only way that anybody could bear to watch his show, you would have to be high to do it. Bill Maher is going out of his way to stick up for anti-black racism, and people like Jonathan Greenblatt and Juliana Margulies are going out of their way to help him do it. All of this vicious outrage about an alleged lack of black support. And then you see what Bill Maher is doing as a matter of, hey, here's your support right here. That's what happened to it. You have Bill Maher trying to gin up lynch mobs against black people. That's where your support went. People who hit the fainting couch the moment someone calls out the racism from certain individuals, but have nothing to say about Bill Maher's now several years-long racist diatribes? Of course not. Because it's not about stopping hate speech. Some of the people pretending to be against hate speech, like Juliana Margulies, talk about black people like dogs, talk down to us like we're supposed to be their slaves. This is what we're told counts as support. This is what we're told is the progressive left. None of them had a word to say about this bigot Maher gleefully defending a song glorifying lynchings. After Ahmaud Arbery, everyone should be opposed to anything that even hints at this kind of sentiment. Bill Maher, on the other hand, wants to celebrate it and encourage it. But Bill Maher's been doing his Rush Limbaugh impersonation for a while, though as black people are well aware, he's been a bigot long before he became a raving, ranting bigot. Bill Maher has absolutely no problem with open racists like Ben Shapiro, going to college campuses and being able to freely voice all kinds of anti-black racism. That's the kind that he's in favor of. Individuals who defended the murder of George Floyd, which is what Ben Shapiro did, and the murder of every other black person killed by some white supremacist, Ben Shapiro continued to lie and claim George Floyd died from a drug overdose, even after he was informed that the medical examiner definitively showed it was the racist kneeling on Floyd's neck for 10 minutes that killed him. And what do the Bill Mahers say? They say, well, that's just freedom of speech. So openly proclaiming black people to be inferior to whites and defending the murders of black people, encouraging the killing of black people, which Ben Shapiro does all the time, why, that's merely a point of view. And it's simply an idea, and college kids could benefit from hearing this. Defending the killing of black people, encouraging the killing of black people. That's just freedom of speech. We're broadening the horizons of young people. But if someone discusses the historical record that shows the founders of the U.S. were slave owners, and that America has conferred benefits and status on people whose skin color is white, why, that's divisive, and nobody needs to hear that. And what educational benefit does anyone get from hearing Ben Shapiro's racist rantings? Ben Shapiro and the rest of his ilk are merely doing a 21st century recycling of the same old racist talking points from the 1800s, the 1900s, and even into the mid-20th century. That's what he's doing. So, how is retelling college kids a bunch of long since disproven, long since debunked, long since dead racist talking points broadening their horizons? How is this making them better students? What kind of higher education is it to tell somebody old racist lies? Stuff that people normally see only on 4chan or Reddit. How is that supposed to be a higher education? The kind of crap that you see on internet message boards. That's supposed to be worthy of the highest educational institutions in the land? When you're narrowing someone's mind, you can't claim to be broadening their horizons. People like Bill Maher complain about certain pro-Palestinian chants on college campuses. They complain about alleged anti-Semitism on college campuses. Last Sunday, with my takedown of Juliana Margulies and her pal Andy Ostroy, I showed you from Ostroy's own mouth. He said he wasn't afraid at all. He was actually, as he put it, livid. This hysteria about anti-Semitism running rampant on college campuses just isn't true. You know, when you cheerlead for and defend Ben Shapiro going to college campuses and letting him openly defend and advocate for murdering black people, when you claim that that's not hate speech but chants about Palestine is, you look like a hypocrite. You cannot compare the two. When a university allows some sawed-off racist like Shapiro to come to their school and speak, they're giving the racist a platform. They're giving what amounts to an endorsement by an educational institution of vile anti-black racism. None of these universities is platforming any of these alleged anti-Semites that we're told are infesting these college campuses. If you say the phrase from the river to the sea, everyone from the dean to the alumni to the Bill Mahers will attack you. The university will put you on probation. But what they won't do is put you on a stage, like they do Ben Shapiro. So let's understand, this is not some sort of let's have a level playing field and let's hear from both sides. No. This is about only hearing from one side. You haven't seen Cornel West on Bill Maher's little sideshow, have you? Not for a while. You see, people have been excoriating and attacking Cornel West merely because he sympathized with the Palestinians. That's why he was denied tenure at Harvard University. So a man who none of them can claim is an anti-Semite, they attack him merely for expressing a point of view. But they demand that anything that attacks black people be platformed and made excuses for, and we have to accept it because that's just freedom of speech. These are the messy excesses of free speech. But the messy excesses only goes one way. Oh, we need a diversity of ideas, Bill Maher says. Okay, then let's make sure that we have Professor Black Truth on one side, and on the other side you can have some paid sellout harlot like a John McWhorter or a Jesse Lee Peterson. And we do what the white media and these white institutions do. We only allow approved of black people to speak. There's your diversity of opinions. So I'm sure the white right and the Bill Mahers would be fine with that, right? No, they wouldn't. This is about white racists being able to say whatever anti-black hate speech they want without being called out for it. The racists and the bigots, the Bill Mahers and the Ben Shapiros, they are protected. They are promoted. What they don't like is that there's been enough people, at least at the grassroots level, who have been able to impose social penalties to make it where even though these universities and these TV networks and such are able to give these guys money and platform them, they're still able to exact a penalty for it anyway. That's the part that they don't like. And don't kid yourself. When you see these racists being put on stages, whether it be a college stage or a sound stage, whenever you see these universities and these prestigious institutions platforming them, that's because a number of white wealthy interests want for what they're saying to be out there. That's the reason why they get these platforms in the first place, because it is approved of speech. And anybody who decides to question them, anybody who impugns them, or anybody who makes them pay any sort of penalty for it or tries to discourage it, that's not approved of. These champions of free speech are angry at anyone who speaks against them. The reality that the Bill Mahers and the Ben Shapiros are well aware of is that their ilk have always had access to college campuses and anywhere else they want. They have mega millionaires, media executives, college presidents, boards of directors, alumni associations who bankroll them. It's wealthy white interests who made Ben Shapiro a thing. They're the ones who fund the Daily Wire and Tucker Carlson's Daily Caller and all these other right-wing toilets you see. They're also the ones who make sure Bill Maher keeps getting steady work too. This half-baked bigot wouldn't be able to open at a two-bit comedy club if white money wasn't backing him. He claims to not be a religious man, but he's beside himself about the situation in Israel, which is based entirely on religion. Specifically, Benjamin Netanyahu using a religious text to justify encroaching on other people's territory. And when Netanyahu and his supporters use the Old Testament, that is the Torah, as their justification, Bill Maher has never once said that that's ridiculous. He's never once pointed to it and said, here's an example of how religion ruins everything. I'm not sticking up for either side in that conflict, by the way. I'm just stating the facts. The main driver of the continuing violence over there is the Israelis' continued encroachment on the Palestinians' land. The Netanyahu regime was so obsessed with expanding Israeli settlements in the West Bank that he removed the IDF from key positions on Gaza and had them redeployed to the West Bank to protect the latest parcels of land that the Israelis took from the Palestinians. If Netanyahu had been busy protecting the Gaza border and not preoccupied with taking more real estate, then the October 7th attack could never have taken place. As Ezra Klein of the New York Times put it in a conversation with an Israeli governmental advisor, it feels like there's this alternative reality we could be living in where the right analysts were listened to and the relevant IDF forces weren't pulled out of Gaza to protect West Bank settlers. And October 7th doesn't happen, or it happens at a very, very, very limited scale. He was right about that. Now keep in mind, he didn't go into details about that fact, but the Times of Israel did. You see, the IDF has been pressed about why there were no Israeli forces at key positions on the border of Gaza that morning of October 7th. Previously, the IDF lied and said they had not diverted any forces away from the Gaza border. They certainly hadn't taken them over to the West Bank. That never happened. That's what they claimed. But Cannes Public Broadcasting reported that 2 companies of troops from the IDF's Commando Brigade, which were deployed to the Gaza border, were sent to the West Bank just 2 days before the October 7th massacre. So you have both the New York Times and the Times of Israel saying the exact same thing. IDF forces were supposed to be on the border of Gaza, but Benjamin Netanyahu was more interested in having them in the West Bank to protect the newest bits of land that they had just taken from the Palestinians. And that single-minded drive on the part of the Netanyahu regime is the reason that the October 7th massacre was able to occur. It certainly would not have been able to take place if the IDF was where they were supposed to be. So it shows what Netanyahu's real priority is. It's not national security. But this is the primary driver of the violence over there. If the continued encroachment on Palestinian territory were to stop, Hamas would lose its ability to recruit new members. But that would require the Israelis to abandon the religious claim that they have a God-given right to that land. Bill Maher claims that religion poisons everything, but apparently he's made an exception to that rule. And this will be the clown who tries to lecture us about identity politics. As black people, we are attacked morning, noon, and night because of our identity. We have done nothing to deserve it. All we did wrong was we were born. And the attacks come from racists like Donald Trump, like Juliana Margulies, Bill Maher, Ed Blum, David Horowitz, Ben Shapiro, Jesse Waters, and Stephen Miller. The people who talk about the need for patriotism, that's a form of identity. But it's one that they approve of because they've pushed a narrative that black people telling the basic history of this country is an attack on America itself. Stop it with all the identity politics, the Bill Mahers say. I wish these white supremacists would stop. When you have these right-wing think tanks putting forward these racist hate tracks like the Triple Package, which pushed a lie about Asians and Jewish people being smarter than everyone else, certainly smarter than black people, a book that was so ridiculously racist and false on its face that even Asians had to call that one out. Though I didn't see Bill Maher, Juliana Margulies calling it out. When that happens, you never hear anyone saying, well, you guys are engaging in identity politics. Nobody ever says that. They would never do that. That phrase only comes out when you're talking about black people. The white supremacists always do the very thing that they accuse black people of doing. Well, listen here, every racist, bootlicking idiot. I'm not abandoning my identity or my politics. Identity is only a problem when it's black people who are asserting theirs. White identity is never divisive. No matter how many people get murdered, it's never problematic. Spout white supremacist gibberish, and the universities will give you a stage, the white media will give you a book deal and a TV show, and Bill Maher will give you a pat on the back. And none of the other late-night comedians will call him out for it. Jimmy Kimmel doesn't. Even if John Oliver wasn't on HBO, he wouldn't be doing it. And neither will your bootlicks in the white media, the breakfast schlubs, and the other empty suit mouthpieces on cable TV. They understand that Bill Maher has a higher ranking than them based on race. Some people think that if black people are under attack, that means they won't be. It's not true. The same people who committed genocides all over the world were also oppressing and mistreating other white Europeans at the exact same time. See, the white supremacists learned how to kill black people and still make plenty of time to beat up on or even slaughter other non-black peoples too. Just ask the Red Indians. A lot of them also allied themselves with the European invaders. But in the end, white power showed it could enslave black people to work the land and kill the Native Americans to get more of it. The lies Margulies was telling is part of an ongoing racist narrative to claim that black people owe somebody something, that we are indebted to people. That's why she spoke with so much hostility towards us. Somewhere along the line, she convinced herself that black people owe her something. Well, we don't. She has white privilege, and she's made use of it every day for the last 58 years. Black people did not give her that racial privilege, but she lives in mortal fear that it might be taken away, as does Bill Maher. Well, if we have our way, white privilege will become a relic of the past. And that is no joke. Good evening, and be one. I'd like to take a moment to mention some of our contributors: Clifford Lewis, Mouse, Cloudbarian, Black Voltron Reloaded, and Kenneth Prescia. Salute to them, and thank you to everyone for listening, liking, and sharing this message. Black empowerment only exists because of you.